Saturday's Cotton Bowl game with Oklahoma was as hard-fought a game as I think I've ever been around. It was a lot like last year's in that it was a real battle, but unlike last year's, the defenses in the kicking game were much more involved this year than they were in last year's game. It was about as opposite of the 45-35 game as you could possibly have. But I'm really proud of our guys that they found a way to win, and they seem to be doing that each week. That game was one that we had a tremendous amount of pressure on us. OU coming in with 2 losses, and a lot of people thought we would just line up and win, and I was proud of the guys that they hung in there and kept fighting. It's 3-1 for the seniors against Oklahoma, and Colt and John will release later his body of work against Oklahoma as a quarterback. But I thought he did a tremendous job of managing some tough times on Saturday again. Colt's 5 wins away from being the winningest quarterback in the history of college football. With one more win, he ties Peyton Manning, who he was honored to have on the sideline on Saturday to watch him play, because both Sam Bradford and Colt were in Peyton's camp this summer, and he just wanted to come out and watch them play. 6-0, number 3 in the BCS, 3-0 in the Big 12 Conference to start is exciting for us. Defense holding Oklahoma to minus 16 yards rushing is very impressive. We have been concerned about stopping the run throughout the year. We kept saying we weren't sure Oklahoma can run the ball. So for back-to-back games against Oklahoma and Colorado, our run defense has been pretty good. Oklahoma was averaging 187 yards rushing per game coming in. Defense has forced 19 turnovers this season. Last year, we forced 16 for the year. So this is a huge change, and it was one of our real emphasis coming into the season, and we're proud that our defense is forcing so many turnovers. In fact, the defense did not let OU in Texas territory the last 4 drives of the game, which was key. They stood up at key times. Over the last 2 years, we've outrushed OU by 271 yards. So I was really, really proud of our running game on Saturday. We actually gained 189 yards. We had 4 sacks. But proud of the fact that we were able to line up and run the ball like we did, and as the same, our defense lined up and stopped the run. This weekend, and we still have a lot of things to fix. So that's the good thing about where we are right now. We're still not near where we can be, but at the position at 6-0, you like the fact that we find new ways to win each week, and that's really the face of a good football team in my estimation. Missouri will be a tough game. They had 2 tough losses back-to-back. They really played hard against Nebraska and were ahead of them and gave up points in the 4th quarter in that rainstorm to win. But Galbert's a very good quarterback. They've got a 6'5" receiver, another receiver that can really run. Those 2 guys can fly, Alexander and Perry. Washington's a really good running back for them. They're running the exact same offense they did last year. They're still the spread. Their quarterback coach, Yost, became the offensive coordinator when Christensen left, so they really haven't changed anything. But you've got to tackle well in space, and that's another thing. We gave up a couple of big plays on Saturday and didn't tackle as well at times as we felt like we needed to. They're a 4-down defense. They blitz about 24% of the time, and Witherspoon's a top pro player. And they've got a lot of guys from Texas. They've got 7 starters back from last year's game, and we feel like that once again, we're in the same position right now we were this time last year. We controlled our own destiny last year, being number 1 in the country after this game, and we let 1 second take it away from us and put it back into the system. And we'd rather continue to control our own destiny. And as coaches and players, we just got to make sure that we enjoy being in the mix after midseason, because if you're in the mix after the Oklahoma game, that's pretty good stuff when you're at Texas. And we've got to make sure that we take advantage of every opportunity that's left and take them one at a time and not start looking down the road.
Coach, how do you explain the change in turnovers?
Go ahead, Ed, you're first.
Thank you, Coach. 19 this year, and also the great leading the country in 3rd down stops. How do you explain that? Is there?
I think experience, older kids than we had last year. You start looking at what Sergio Kendall and Lamar Houston, Sam Macho, Keyston Randall, Ben Alexander's playing great. You start looking at what's happened to our front since we lost those guys last year. You lose Henry Melton, Brian Orakpo, Aaron Lewis, Roy Miller. You're not sure who will replace those guys and what's happened because of our depth right now. We have guys step up, and they're taking place of guys when it's their time. And we said that's why Texas has been consistent, is it's your responsibility to step up and take the guy's place that played ahead of you the year before and make sure that you play well. And we play a lot of guys, and we do that on purpose just so we'll make sure they take somebody else's place. We're also able to play better man coverage right now. The Shockey Brown, Curtis Brown, Aaron Williams, those guys are locking up man-to-man, and we're blitzing well. We're stopping the run, so we're putting more people in third and long. And if you, for instance, Oklahoma did not make a third down the second half. They were 3 for 15, I think, for the game. They were 3 for 10 at halftime. We made 1 out of 9 third downs because of penalties, because of turnovers the first half. We made 4 out of 8 the second half and controlled the ball 19 minutes. So that combination right now is really good.
Coach, you've done a great job historically of not getting down after a big game. Now you're playing Missouri. You said it, they're 0-2. But seemingly, if you saw the first 4 games, like against Illinois, they're actually a pretty good team. Gabbard's growing. How do you keep the team from looking at that 0-2 Big 12 record and thinking that this might be a weekend that you can recover from after OU?
Just about all these kids played last year, and all we have to do is say .028 and make sure that they understand this was the stretch that got us in trouble last year. And we talked a long time yesterday in our meeting about you are what you are. So if you want to make this run, then you have to be prepared each week. You have to be excited like it's the only game of the year each week. And if you've got 6 games left to put yourself in a position to win the conference championship in the championship game, then it's on you, it's on the coaches to make sure that we get ourselves focused and ready every day. And we didn't play great on Saturday, but boy, did we play hard. You don't have to play great all the time to win. You do have to play hard. The more I know about this game, the more I realize that it's about attitude. It's about toughness. It's about hanging in there and playing hard and finding a way to win and being confident. And that's what these kids and our coaches, along with myself, have to do. I told them you don't have to forget the Oklahoma win. That's a hard one to get around here. A lot of kids that played at Texas didn't beat them. We've had some that went through their string. So I want the kids to remember this game. I want them to enjoy it, but I want them to move forward. And that's really important and build on it. And the best thing is, every kid on our team from Saturday still has some things that we can improve. So we can go back and coach hard. It wasn't last year. It was easier to coach the defense, harder to coach the offense when you get 45 points. Offense will have their attention today.
I mean, you're 11-0 the week after OU here. How difficult is that to get the guys back right mentally?
I really feel like the week before and the week after are the hardest coaching jobs that you have. We're around midterms. Upsets happen at midseason. And that game is just unbelievable. There's so many banged up kids for both teams. And emotionally, I talked to them about it. It's nearly like there's 2 feelings that are both unhealthy. Right after you get through, you feel pretty good about yourself when you've won that game, so you can be a little complacent and say, this is pretty cool. We're okay. You know, and Missouri's watching that same game. They're mad at you, or you can come back and really have a little bit of depression because you were on such a high getting excited about that game that you come back now and say, whoa, gosh, I'm relieved. We're through with that game. It's just so big. And both of those are really, really dangerous. So what we did is said, we're going back to work. We're going to have a physical practice tomorrow. We're getting right back to work. What we saw is beating Oklahoma means nothing unless you finish it right. And that's what we want to do this year that we didn't do last year.
Mack, is there some satisfaction of excuse me.
Better look at me.
I know.
Last year,
I didn't know who it was when I knew.
you all became the #1 team in the nation. When you talk about being third in the BCS, do you like it that maybe the pressure isn't there to be the top team?
Well, the pressure is there being number 3 because everybody says to every one of our kids that they see, unless you win them all, you're not going to have a chance to get what you want. What we want is for them to try to enjoy the ride. Well, what a wonderful time that these kids are giving us as fans, you as media, our administration. This is fun. 2 years in a row they've been in the mix after midseason. 2 years in a row they've beaten Oklahoma to jumpstart. They're right in the first BCS polls that come out. And there is pressure, regardless of whether you're 1 or 3. And I don't think the kids feel like there's any difference because they know that it changes. And they know it changes per week. So I think they feel like if you're in the top 2, 3, or 4, it's okay.
Coach, there's excuse me, been a lot of talk this year about teams dealing with illnesses and flu and things. There's been 2 games now where after the game, Colt talks about him being sick. Can you just discuss kind of how you guys deal with that in terms of that versus a stereotypical injury and announcing it, not announcing it?
Yes, we feel like that number one, normally if a young man is going to play in the game, we don't announce it, because if we do, then it gives the other team an advantage to know what's hurt or that he's sick, and you ought to beat him down. And if it's a sore ankle, they'll take shots at the ankle. They're human beings, and they want to win a game. There's no question about that. So if a young man's out on Monday, we say he's out. Last week, because it was obvious that Trey Newton did not play in the second half, and it was obvious that Vondrell McGee went down and did not come back in, that we thought we should address it, that they both were not out of the game, but there were issues that we need to look at. When you talk about sickness, I'm sick about every day. I got allergies, I got a headache. I mean, we're levels of sickness. If you can play and you don't feel good, should I say to everybody, boy, Colt doesn't feel good, Oklahoma, so if y'all will get after him now, he is miserable. He got a real bad head cold. He can't breathe, so I'm just making everybody aware of that. Or do you listen to Colt and you say, hey, let's go to work, let's do the best you can do. In fact, if he could have talked after the press conference, he probably wouldn't even have mentioned it. And when his thumb got hit, I mean, he said to me, he said, my gosh, Coach, that thing, it hurts. But no, I'm not coming out, and I need to run the ball more. Let me have the ball in my hands. And I'm thinking, okay, we're sick. We got a bad thumb, but I'm not coming out and I want to run more. That's too much information. Just leave me alone and let me go here and do what we need to do. But Colt is so tough. And if you'll watch the emotion of Colt right after the game, number one, with that ball in his hands, he's shaking it up above, and he's so excited that he's beaten Oklahoma again, and we're moving forward as a team. And then he broke up a little bit with the Lisa Salters after the game. That shows you it's not about him. He's not sitting and wondering, how many times did I throw it? How many times did I complete it? And what did it look like for me? He wanted to win that football game. That was the only thing that matters. And when people are looking at Heisman numbers, to me, that's a key. It's not always about gaudy numbers. It's about who wins. And that kid is 5 away from the winningest ever, and that's pretty cool.
Mack, winning the way you did, kind of an un-Big 12 fashion with the slugfest low scoring, is there some satisfaction, and is it a point where down the road maybe you can point to, hey, we can win this way as well?
Yes, it's humorous after 12 years here, and I kind of grew up in the SEC. If our game had been in the SEC Saturday, they'd have said, what a great, tough SEC game. This is the way they win down here. They run the ball and they play defense. Big 12, they said, well, that's sloppy. I can't believe that's sloppy. So, and then we're all spread offense, and we're not tough. It's not a tough league. I thought it was 2 great defenses on Saturday. I'm going to tell you, there'll be so many NFL players on that team, and off of those 2 teams that'll be playing off the defense next year. Peyton Manning came up after the game. He said, I saw a bunch of them out there I'd like to draft, but they're not going to make it to us. We're 5-0. And that's true. But I think the key to college football, everybody loves the style points. Style points die when you're undefeated at the end. I mean, here we are starting a second run at the end of the year, and what you got to do is win, survive, move on. It's hard, not going to look pretty all the time. And I think that's the key to where we are right now. And that's why we've won with kicking game, we've won with defense, we've won with offense. Our differential, if you'll look at the stats John will release today, we've outscored the opponent 164 points. Florida's out, and that's second in the country in amount of how many we've scored compared to how many we've given up. Florida's 166, so they're 2 points higher than us. So I like the way we're playing. And again, we can fix some things. I really like the fact that we were able to run the ball for 189 yards. That's a huge message. Last week we couldn't, and Colorado obviously is getting better. I mean, nobody in here would have picked them to beat Kansas. I mean, that's just part of the deal. So if we can just stay away from ghost and not talking about the end and talk about today, talking about the now. I loved our misdirection Saturday. I love the fact we were able to run it better. That'll help us with play action. There's some things that we hit on Saturday I think will help us down the road.
Coach, you say there's still some things to fix. Are there more or less this week to fix than last week?
Every week they're different. When you start looking at it, John, in my estimation, that's what makes it so hard and so challenging, because you never know who's going to show up. Our kids usually play hard. They don't always play good. We've been able to just for the last couple of years and just beat everybody. Well, everybody now is trying to press us and they're trying to blitz us. So we've got to be able to run the ball. We didn't have the sacks the second half. We had the first half. because we tied the blitzes down with the running game. And we had some bigger runs Saturday than we've ever had. If I'd asked you guys if we'd run for 189 yards up, you all would have sniggered last week because you were beating me up so bad about we couldn't run it a lick. And they were giving up 53 yards rushing a game. So I thought the coaches did a great job of finding some runs to settle down the team in the second half, and therefore we were able to keep the ball 19-plus minutes.
Matt, you talked about that stretch last year and when Missouri was part of that, but at the same time, that Missouri game had one of the best first halves of football we've seen in a long time. This is not the game where you feel things went awry. I mean, do you want to duplicate that success you had last year? Or at what point did you start to think fatigue set in and all of that?
Yes, I thought our first half against Missouri last year was the best half we played for the year. And it's a little unrealistic because things aren't going to happen that well all the time. I mean, every time a ball bounced up, we caught it. Colt dropped the ball, bounced up in his hands, and he threw an 18-yard out. I mean, you know, it was one of those nights where it just worked for us. And it happened to be the week after Oklahoma on national TV, so it was good. Then the next week, we didn't play quite as well against Oklahoma State. We had chances to put them away and didn't. And then Tech, we've seen it enough and talked about it enough. So that's what the kids and coaches need to learn from is just you don't ever know when Pretty's going to show up. When Pretty shows up, hug it. Enjoy it. And say, boy, I don't know where these guys came from, but let's just, hey, Greg, repeat successful plays. Just keep doing it, big boy, what you're doing. Same with Will. But when Ugly shows up, you still got to win, too. You got to hug Ugly and hang in here and fight. And there was some Ugly that showed up on Saturday, but an experienced staff, a confident staff, hung in there and didn't panic and did what we needed to do to win when not everything was working. And I think that's the thing that the staff should get so much credit for on Saturday. And the kids. At halftime, I told the kids, you were down by 1 point last year. You're down by 3 this year. So what's the big deal? Come on now. You got to find a way to win. This is us. We win the fourth quarters. We're going to do it in this game, so let's go out and start it that way. And that's what the kids did. So I was very proud of them. But you can't expect to have a first half like Missouri last year this time. You got to go back to work.
Last question.
Who wins the big game this week? Colt's dad or Jordan's dad? Brownwood or Brand? Who?
I can answer that question. We can't get into picking high school. Games.
Good point. I'm not going to ask either one of them. I'll stay away from that one. So I think somebody down here had one. Was it you, Jeff, or somebody?
I was going to ask real quickly, is there anything schematically that Oklahoma was able to do that other teams might be able to use moving forward, or was it more to do with their personnel and just how good they are?
But number one, they may have the best defensive personnel in the country, or they're in that group. They're unbelievable. Gerald McCoy, unbelievable. I looked him up after the game, and I said to him, my gosh, I mean, bless your heart. What a great player you are, son. You just unbelievable. And their whole front's that way. They're just really good. Linebackers are great. Secondary can cover you. And I think what we found is that we need to run the ball better, and that will help us with play action, get the ball deeper. So the same scheme they used in the first half, they used the second half. We handled it the second half. We didn't handle it the first half. So, and it was different than what they'd done with us in the past. They came out all-out blitz. Colorado played us different, so there's no question people are going to try to pressure and press us. And what we've got to do is make sure we can get the ball downfield further and make sure we do some play action to get some deep balls.